So can you see this that I'm holding up?
Yep.
That is a piece of jewelry that was made by Gay Blackstone, who is the widow of Harry Blackstone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it just dawned on me, oh, I happen to have to put something on this morning for this sweater I'm wearing, and I grabbed that. I got that at a magic convention just about this time last year. It was a gift. So it fits in with the theme, and I didn't even think about that.
There are no accidents.
There are none, but I was amazed last year. I didn't realize, I mean, everybody knows the name Harry Blackstone, but I didn't realize that he was so recent that his widow is, very active in the magic world, and that was a fascinating thing to me. John, were you writing before you met Jim?
Yes, I was. I've written screenplays for years, ever since I was a teenager. I've written a bunch of screenplays, and from a few of those I've made feature films. Plus, in the corporate world, I made my living as a video script writer. So I had a lot of experience, but nothing as long and complicated as a novel.
So you find writing a novel more complicated than a screenplay?
Yes, being that I'm in the midst right now of adapting a screenplay into a novel. Screenplays are just a whole lot less words. A whole lot less words.
Why is it easier? I mean, less words, but is it because you don't have to write the descriptions? I would think the whole aspect of plotting, character development, all of that would be similar.
It is to a degree. Plotting certainly is, but there's so much that can be conveyed in a screenplay by just a look from an actor that you can reference. You can create a lot of that backstory about a character just in a few strokes. Whereas in a novel, you kind of have to dig in and tell the reader more. They don't have that visual to guide them.
See, and I think that's fascinating because to me, I've tried occasionally to write scripts, and I find it much easier to write a novel. Maybe that's because that's what I do. Maybe if I'd started off with scripts, I would find it easier.
It's fun though. I mean, my entire background is theater. I own a theater company. I write all of our material. I can't write a script to save my life. I have to come up with scenarios and have actors improvise around them in order to get to be able to actually come up with a workable script.
Well, explain that, Michael, though. You just said you write all the material, but you don't write a script.
Yeah, I do it via actors. I have them improvise around scenarios.
Okay.
Use them to create the dialogue.
Okay. And that's fascinating because that's yet another aspect of writing.
Well, that's Jim's early background is in improv at Dudley Brave New Workshop, in which I believe all the sketches were. I know you came in writing some stuff, but a lot of it came from suggestions of the audience that you later built on. Isn't that right?
That is, yeah. We used to come up with a theme for whatever the show was going to be, and then we started a series of improvs in rehearsal, and that's where the scripts were written from. But then after every performance, we would do some instant theater and allow the audience to toss out some suggestions, and we would turn them into kind of live, spontaneous kumbaya pieces of theater right there in front of everybody.
I have a questioner. I have a question. The allergies in the early morning kicking in. I have a question from a listener. Actually, this is from Bob Miller. He had some things he specifically wanted to know about your writing because, of course, he's a magician. And his question was, all your books are named after magic tricks. So do you have a criterion for choosing which trick would make a good theme for a story?
Yes, I don't have a strong criterion. It has to be an interesting name. And the ambitious card, which was the first one, was absolutely that. It has to be something that I can actually describe without giving it away, such as the second book in the series is called The Bullet Catch. The third book is called The Miser's Dream. These are all tricks that are very visual. They're easy to describe. And it's nice. It's a nice to have to tie it in thematically with the story. But that doesn't always happen. But yeah, it's generally, what's a cool name for a title based on a trick. One of the ones I wanted to use early on was called The Trick That Cannot Be Explained. which is a very cool card trick. But the publisher had at the time said, no, you can't do that. That's way too long of a title. I can't tweet that. It has to be shorter. So we've kind of come up with the format that all the books are titled The Something Something, The Miser's Dream, The Floating Light Bulb, The Zombie Ball, to kind of keep them all in that same category.
So were you able to take that name, The Trick That Cannot Be Explained? What did the title become?
That one became The Miser's Dream.
Oh, okay. I think that we are ready for beer number 2, Michael.
All right, beer number 2 for the reading Theater, Theater Can Be Murder. The image that stood out in this for me was the set, because one of the main character kind of is examining this set the whole time. And coming from theater and having built a number of sets myself, there is a saying among people who build sets that goes, it doesn't have to be good, it just has to look good.
Right.
So it's like a facade, it's a fake. You walk through the door, you don't walk into another room, you walk into backstage. So I was looking for a beer that kind of was a fake, a facade of something. So I looked at Session IPA. The idea of a Session IPA is an India Pale Ale that is low alcohol and, poundable, if you will. So I chose Triumphant Session IPA from Summit. It's part of their spring seasonal pack. So the thing with a Session IPA, it's like you drink it, it gives you the hop character, the hop aroma, it gives you bitterness, but then it's just lacking. It's just kind of a shell of what an IPA should be. It doesn't quite live up to the name IPA. So it's like a facade of an IPA, a fake IPA, if you will. Doesn't have to be good, just has to look good.
I'm having a hard time imagining what that would taste like. But go ahead. Sample.
Very bitter and light.
Okay, so in other words, I don't like this one.
You would not like this at all.
Okay. So for this moment, I'm glad I'm not there.
Yes.
Cheers, anyway. All right.
And now we have a recording going. And we're done with the recording.
Woohoo! Okay. So, John, as an author myself, I love this scene because I didn't see the end coming. Now, maybe it was late at night, maybe I should have, I don't know. But once the end happened, I saw immediately you had given me all the clues. And every author needs to be able to do this. Like, even in my writing, I write about time travel to medieval Scotland, but the reader still has to have the clues, even in, fluff romance. But I think it's especially true in mysteries. And I want to know, because I don't think I could do this. Does this come naturally to you, this dropping of the clues? Or have you done a lot of reading or studying on the craft of mysteries? Do you have to work hard at it?
I do. I don't have a mystery mind. I don't have a puzzle mind. I come from a family of people with puzzle minds. My brother is a nationally ranked Scrabble player.
Wow.
Yeah, but I don't have that. So it is. It doesn't come easy. Particularly hard in the Eli Marks books. For the Como Lake Players books, which take place in St. Paul at a small theater, my goal was to not labor over it so much. So I knew, jumping into that book, I knew who was murdered, I knew how they were murdered, I knew when they were murdered, where the body showed up. I knew nothing else going in, and just started writing. And by about chapter 3, I went, oh, I know who it is, I think, and just kept writing, as it turned out I was right. And with a novel, you can take a lot of little tangents, and a lot of those tangents end up being either clues or red herrings. And so you have to pay them off at some point or another later in the story. But because I was literally making it up as I went along, I had no idea how any of them were going to pay off. And it was sort of an experiment to just not be as buttoned down in the preparation of a book and see what happens and just keep it a lot lighter
I think that can be really interesting, though, and maybe make it more real for the reader, if that makes sense, because I'm working on a book now where there's a ghost in the castle, and I went into it not knowing who it was. And in fact, when I finished my series, I didn't know until I wrote the last page who's going to end up back in medieval Scotland and who's going to stay. And hopefully, that came across to the reader. I mean, if the author didn't know.
Exactly. Yeah. If the author doesn't know, how can you possibly hint or give it away? There's a whole school of thought on that for some mystery writers, where they firmly believe if they don't